evening. Tonight we'll kick off the meeting for the July 27th Traffic Safety Commission.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. First off, we'll start with the flag salute. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good. Roll, please.
Commissioner Ackerman is absent. Commissioner Carter?
Here.
Maddox?
Here.
Richardson is absent. And Sullivan.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Public comments?
No public comments tonight, just on the agenda item.
Okay. We'll move on then to consent calendar. No. Okay, oh, here we go. Bear with me, my printer didn't work at home, so everybody took all of them up there. Okay, consent calendar. I don't need to.
You should take a vote on that. You just have that one item
Yeah, I
to
don't
approve
need
the
to read
minutes.
it. Yeah, we'll just take the vote on the minutes for the last meeting.
I'll move the
May
consent
25th.
calendar.
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Ackerman is absent. Carter?
Aye.
Maddox?
Aye.
Richardson is absent. And Sullivan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move right into business. This will be the members of the public may address commission on business items that appear on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Public comments may be made in person at the meeting by submitting a speaker card to the commission secretary. Speaker cards will be called upon in order that they are received. Still images may be displayed on the projector right at the podium there. All other audio and visual use is prohibited. Public comments may also be submitted by email for inclusion into the record. Email comments must be received prior to the time the item is called for public comments and submitted to Traffic Safety Commission at temecula.gov. All public participation is governed by the council policy regarding public participation at meetings adopted by resolution number 2021-54. And the item on the agenda is Yanez de Portola Road Traffic Calming Workshop.
Chair Carter, we do have a staff report for you, and then we do have a number of public speakers. So at your pleasure, we'll do our staff report first, and then you can call on the speakers.
Oh, I thought they were all here just to see the operation go. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so Nick Mancilli, our senior traffic engineer, will be presenting the staff report.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. This workshop presentation is on the Yanez Road, De Portola Road traffic calming. A little background on this corridor. Over the past few months, Los Ranchitos residents have come in and discussed their concerns regarding excessive speed and general safety concerns on the corridor of Yanez Road and De Portola Road from Santiago Road to Margarita Road. Earlier this month, we did meet with the residents to discuss these concerns, and we came up with some preliminary ideas, much of which we're going to be sharing in this presentation tonight. Many concerns were mentioned from the residents, but a lot of the biggest concerns kind of boiled down to excessive speeding. That seemed to be the main component. The concerns on this corridor has kind of been an issue that's been around for a while. We've implemented many various improvements in the past, so we're hoping to build off that with these near-term improvements that we'd like to share with you today. A little bit of corridor information. The posted speed limit on this roadway is 45 miles per hour. It's the alignment is 2 lanes with a center turn lane. In the general plan, the roadway designation is a modified secondary arterial, which means it's a 4-lane separated, although it's not currently built out to that standard. We pulled some traffic data with our streetlight data system, and the 85th percentile speed varied between 48 and 52 miles an hour at various points along the corridor. The ADT varied from 18,000 as you're closer to Santiago and all the way down to around 11,000 just before Margarita. One thing to note is the speed around the roundabout kind of came in lower, around 41 miles an hour in and out of the roundabout. So, kind of depending where you take that speed, people are slowing down as they approach it. But as we talk about later on, when there's accidents, maybe they need to be going a little bit slower on that. So, but it is worthy to note that before and after on that stretch, it is slower. Past improvements that we've implemented on the corridor has been 2 existing VCOM speed feedback signs. We actually, earlier this year, approved through the commission 2 more that we will be installing. We actually just recently received that equipment, so that should be going in there along the corridor in the next month or so. We've done horse trail crossings with enhancements with striping and rectangular rapid flashing beacons. We've done signing and striping improvements at the roundabout, various cross-hatching, and trying to squeeze down the lanes in order to get people to slow them down through the use of striping. We've added signs around the corners of the roundabout, chevron signs. Hard to see in the photo, but you can see it in the very, very distance above that black car for the chevron signs. We've also reduced the speed on the Paz Road to 25 miles per hour. It was formerly 35 miles per hour, but it's down to 25. We've also done increased police enforcement and put out the sheriff radar speed trailer in the past. So on to some of the ideas that staff has come up with, and we tried to tailor these based on what we heard from the residents and kind of see what would help to reduce the speeds on the roadway. One item that we think could be implemented is reducing the lanes, the through lanes, to 10 feet and adding bike buffers where feasible. This would be a decent solution, try to narrow that road, get people to slow down a little bit. We wouldn't have to remove striping, we would just be adding a buffer line to the existing bike lane. Another concern from residents was the horse crossings. One idea we have here is to kind of restripe the horse crossings. Right now you can kind of see in the photo, it's kind of hard to see the crossing as you drive up to it. The lines, the continental crosswalk lines, they're pretty thin. So the idea is to kind of remove it, make it thicker, wider, and then even increase the width of the crossing so people see it and it feels like more like an intersection. That'll hopefully get them to acknowledge that crossing a little bit easier. I kind of show a proposed striping. It's not super detailed, but it just kind of show the idea of that, what that would look like. Another near-term improvement, and this was based on Ron would know the date of it, but I think the HOA requested more horse crossings in the Los Ranchitos area. We have 2 existing ones that are marked. We think there's 2 other locations where we can provide another trail crossing. This would be pending, coordination with the HOA to see if these are locations they would like, but we thought these would be 2 decent locations as well. On the map, you can kind of see the horse trail with the red dots, and then the general existing and proposed crossings. Other near-term improvements, I mentioned before, adding 2 more VCOM signs along the corridor. We have preliminary locations, but we will have to go out there and verify that the feasibility of adding them in those locations. Some other ideas we came up with is adding some speed enforced by radar signs, and also a sign that I saw in the county of San Diego, which I feel when I drive through it, kind of alerts me to slow down, is entering traffic calm neighborhood or area. We think this could be a good one just to alert folks that are driving through that corridor that this is a community with driveways. So kind of pay attention to your speed and let's slow down a little bit. And we would be potentially adding those signs at several locations in order to provide reminders. Other improvements kind of focus on the roundabout. The roundabout we've all heard there's accidents there. So we want to draw attention a little bit more to the roundabout. One potential idea is adding a flashing sign with like LED lights on the outside right at the roundabout so people can't avoid it. We believe a majority of the accidents are kind of occurring at night. So we think something like this could draw attention. Another idea is to install dash striping as you enter the roundabout. The picture on the right shows a roundabout in the city of Vista with that dash striping. I've talked to the traffic engineer. It helps a little bit. So that's something we may consider as well, that type of striping kind of alerts people to slow down a little bit. And then another idea is to kind of look at providing improvements in the center of the roundabout, kind of provide a little bit more of a vertical improvement. It's kind of like a line of sight obstruction, so people see that there's an obstruction in the middle and it grabs their attention. We're kicking around various ideas on that. We don't have a full-on solution there. It varies whether it could be a raised mound with landscaping or some type of wall. We've seen various examples and that can be provided. I actually have examples at the end of the slide if we wanted to check that out. And then other near-term improvements is I think we need to reinforce with the police kind of going down that road a little bit more, and also put the sheriff's radar speed trailer, put that out there a little bit more often, put it on a rotation. I want to note that all these potential near-term solutions are not intended to be implemented at once. We think we can kind of do this in a kind of a phased approach and then see how the reaction to the speeds are occurring. Are they dropping, and if it's working? Some longer-term improvements. Now, these long-term improvements, for tonight, we're not seeking for you to approve any of these things, but we're actually seeking you to recommend studying this more, because these things are going to be a lot more costly and require a lot more approval, city council approval. So long-term improvements is some ideas that we had. We have an existing roundabout at La Paz. We are approved for a roundabout at Jedediah Smith. And another idea, we thought a potential roundabout or traffic circle could be at Pio Pico Drive. Roundabouts tend to work better when you do them in series. So we think having this along this whole corridor could function a lot better. And another item we're actually studying right now is a Class 1 trail on the south side of Inez and Temecula. We're basically determining the feasibility of that, but that's just something else we wanted to mention on that. Another long-term improvement is improving further the roundabout. Instead of putting the striping, using striping, potentially doing some edge curbs or a berm, kind of draw attention to that more, and it really squeezes people down so they can't cut off that striped improvement. It forces them to slow down. That's just and this is one that's going to eastbound. We'd look at all legs of the intersection on doing that, kind of replacing the striping and using a raised obstruction there. And another one, and I apologize if this is hard to see, it's just a really long corridor to show the improvements, but other ideas is to add some type of raised medians at various points along the corridor that won't interfere or obstruct driveways. It's hard to find it. There's quite a few driveways here, but there's locations where we think you can do that, and that's a type of traffic calming measure, is to add raised medians. And another long-term improvement, which is going to be studied next year as part of the general plan amendment, is just the general roadway designation of the corridor. It's a modified secondary arterial, 4-lane separated, and this is a cross-section of what's in the general plan currently. And with that, staff's recommendation for the commission is to direct staff to implement near-term traffic calming measures on Inez Road and Departola Road, and to also direct staff to continue to study the long-term traffic calming measures on Inez Road and Departola Road. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioners?
All right, so it looked like the traffic survey data indicated that the roundabout has reduced 85th percentile speeds in that area, and yet we're also seeing an unusually high number of accidents. And I wanted to see if we could drill in on that a little bit more. Seems like a number of roadway departure crashes. Is there any pattern to that accident history? Is it impaired or distracted drivers?
Yeah, we definitely feel it's the increased speed, and the majority of those major crashes are impaired drivers at night. That's what we've talked to the sheriffs about too, and that seems to be the common theme there.
Okay. And then, in your expert opinion, would rumble strips arranged, longitudinally or transverse be an effective countermeasure for dealing with inattentive drivers?
Rumble strips do work. Could be a potential noise pollution there. That is in a toolbox. I haven't seen it used at an application of a roundabout, so I'd have to research that a little bit, but that is a tool.
Okay. Are there any updates that you can share on the condition of the horse statue?
Pat, do you have an update on that?
Sure. No, we actually, as Nick mentioned, there was a traffic incident week before last, I believe, where a driver just went right through the middle of the roundabout and sheared off the horse statue. So we did recover the statue, and there were some broken pieces. We've actually met with a welder and are looking at being able to try to reconstruct the horse statue and hopefully be able to integrate that into the kind of the redesign of the roundabout.
I'm glad to hear that because I know it has symbolic importance for the residents there too. The staff report also mentioned that we lowered the speed limit on La Paz from 35 to 25, and I assume we had traffic survey data to back that up. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little more on the speed trap law and how cities go about lowering the speed limit, because it can't necessarily be immediate or arbitrary, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, so in order to set a speed limit, you have to do a engineering and traffic study. What that is basically you get radar speed data of cars on the street, and you determine an 85th percentile speed, and that's what we set the speed limit at. Depending on what that data comes in at, depending on the speed, you can kind of raise the 5 miles an hour or lower it down. And in the case of the La Paz, I think our data, I don't remember the specific data, but I think it came in at around 32, and then we were allowed to lower it to 30 and then lower it down to 25.
Right.
I'd have to double check that, but I think that's how it came down to it. There's specific ways you can do that. But generally, that's how you avoid the speed trap is you have to get a survey done. You can't just arbitrarily set a speed limit.
Okay. But we can, indirectly, through traffic calming measures, get there.
Yeah, and so one thing I want to mention is we are currently doing a engineering traffic survey on this road right now. We'll be getting new data on that 85th percentile speed, and we'll see what we get. That's going to be happening very soon, and then as we implement more of these things, we're hoping to see a drop, and then we'll do another speed survey on it. I don't want to get hopes up and say we're going to get to 25 miles an hour because I don't think this road will ever be that, but hopes of going down to 40 and potentially 35 are very reasonable in my estimation.
Okay, that's good to hear. Last question, shifting gears to the general plan update. When the circulation element is revised, does that automatically trigger a new environmental impact report?
Am I good?
Yes. Yeah, an EIR will be done for the general plan update.
Great. And that would presumably answer questions about VMT and new complete streets guidelines and new elements of that circulation.
Yes, that'll all be included in the study for the update.
Excellent. That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. The first one would be if we recommended a reduction in speed to 40 miles per hour, we wouldn't need to do that with the traffic study. The city does have a 5 mile per hour safety variable, am I correct?
Well, we would need to have a study to establish whatever the results of the study is, and then we do have that discretion to adjust that based on an engineer's finding.
So hypothetically, if the study came back and said 45 is a safe limit, we could technically still bring it to 40?
Yes.
All right. And then the second question I have, first of all, thank you everybody for coming out. We really do appreciate your being here, and we look forward to your presentations. This is probably one of the more difficult situations as a commissioner I've had to deal with, because some obvious changes, improved lighting and some other things don't necessarily, they're not in favor by the residents there. And so, and I know that most of you have had your homes long before Temecula became 114,000 population and that road became an arterial versus access to your horse property. So we're trying to find some sort of balance there. I'm wondering, is there any kind of improved lighting that could be performed at the roundabout but would not affect the neighborhood and have a lot of bleed over lighting?
Well, we did put safety lighting up at the roundabout when it was constructed, so I believe there's adequate lighting now. And then, as Nick mentioned, there are a couple of flashing signs that were added, and then we're recommending that we add another one there on the approaches to the roundabout. So I don't know that there's any more, lighting that would really improve anything there. And
Well,
the
there's-
corridor.
There's only 2 lights actually at the roundabout that do the roundabout itself.
The overhead lights, the
Yeah,
safety
because they
lights.
split and go to La Paz and they split and go to heading north. But, so it's still a very dark area. I understand the residents would like to keep it that way. I'm just wondering perhaps if we could put,
And we may be able to incorporate some additional lighting into the feature at the roundabout in
that's
the
what I was
center.
gonna, that's
Yeah,
what I was
yeah.
gonna
And
suggest.
that'll
If we
be-
could perhaps make the horse a little more obvious, but without
that'll be-
affecting bleed over into the homes.
Yeah, that'll be part of what we look at as far as improvements to the roundabout.
All right, that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Just a couple of clarifying questions. You indicated that, or it shows here on the traffic, on the ADTs, that it drops off before it gets to Margarita. Are they turning at Jedediah and leaving out that way, or to the hospital, or where do you think most of those, about
Yeah,
60
so I think people are taking La Paz to go south to Temecula Parkway, and then a combination of Jedediah going north and south as well. So it's just a natural progression. As they go further east, they're dropping off to the side streets and the hospital and wherever.
Okay. And I utilize this roadway quite a bit myself, and the times of day I do it or see it, as a resident, you kind of know when a good time and bad time to go that way. Coming to this meeting tonight, I figured, oh man, it's gonna be backed up from Santiago back to, sometimes it's almost to to La Paz, but not as much. But what's the other one? Vallejo? Yeah, it's usually backed up to that. Today it wasn't. But are there different times of day? Is it usually that time of day in the afternoon where people are using it as a cut-through? And do we feel that with the improvements on the 15, once that's completed, that will cut down a lot of that cross-through traffic.
I would say majority is the AM drive time, PM drive time, and probably middle of the day for like the lunchtime. But there's decent traffic. Those ADTs are
Yeah.
pretty high.
Now, you said you had some pictures at the end of your presentation on things around the,
Yeah, so here's some other roundabout examples and just when we were coming up with potential solutions for,
yeah,
you know, what you can do in the median.
yeah, like the one on the top left here.
Yep, that's,
If we put the horsey back up there, and then we had illuminating lights, you know, arrows or something to go around.
yeah,
The issue there is that rotary, or where I come from, they used to call them rotaries, now they're roundabouts. A lot of people aren't used to those here yet, still. And it's 15 miles an hour. And the signs are there for 15. So I think maybe some enforcement. I think number one on the list, what we can do immediately, I think, is enforcement to modify behavior. That usually gets them right away. Either they find another way to go, or once you get cited, you kind of slow down, or once you see the officers out there every once in a while, I think that would help a lot in our attempt to make these other improvements on the short-term ones. So I appreciate the presentation. It was good. Thank you. Public comments? Or no, did you have anything?
I was going to suggest you go ahead and take public comment now, yeah.
Okay, we'll go with public comments now.
Just wanted to note for the record, we did receive 3 comments via email, and those were forwarded to the commission. Reminder for our public speakers, each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. I'll start the timer when you start speaking, and you'll be able to watch that at the podium as well. Our first speaker is Lewis Todd, followed by Lizelle D.
Thank you, traffic commissioners and staff. My name's Lewis Todd. My wife and I moved to Temecula in 1986 before there was any traffic signals in the town. And we moved to Los Ranchitos about 12 years ago to our dream home. And we've seen just a significant change in the number of vehicles cutting through our neighborhood. And more importantly, they're all driving at least the speed limit, not many under, a few over. And I've heard and met with city. I'm also a board member for Los Ranchitos and the Trail Committee chairperson. The suggestions that were made are fine, but it still doesn't address the problem at hand. And I understand that there's a set of state guardrails that you have to stay within in terms of how you reduce the speed limit. You can't arbitrarily reduce the speed limit. We'd love the speed limit to be reduced. In fact, if you read some of the city materials on safety for pedestrians and so forth, for drivers it says, don't cut through residential neighborhoods because you have cars that are backing out of their driveways. Well, that's our driveways. We live this every single day. And so what we would like to see happen is better calming methods. And we appreciate what you're doing, but I would like to use the example that the city has done on Front Street here. And what they did was they put a stop sign at every cross street. And I'm sure that was not done to help the flow of traffic, but it was done to protect the pedestrians and the businesses that are there. It'd be a very simple thing to do. Add 8 stop signs on Inez de Portola, and that would be an immediate impact. You want to get the calming to happen, put the stop signs in, and that will slow things down. The other one would be is to reduce the speed limit at the actual roundabout. I got educated. I thought the speed limit at the roundabout was 15 miles an hour. It's not, right? It's 45 miles an hour. Can you drive that roundabout at 45 miles an hour? Yeah. My wife's got a little sports car. She could probably get around there, but I can't do that in my truck. It's craziness. It just doesn't make sense. We don't have sidewalks in our neighborhood because of the design of our neighborhood. In fact, the sign behind you says Old Traditions. That's the first thing that it says on there, right? That's us. We're one of the oldest housing developments in Temecula, and we're being ignored, right? We're used as a pass-through for people to get from the freeway to their beautiful homes. You would never allow a neighborhood to be built like ours today with a road going through it, right? We're there. We were there first. We feel like we're being ignored by you guys. We're hoping that you'll be able to help us. In terms of pedestrian traffic, we have one crosswalk. One at the roundabout. Nobody in their right mind would try to walk across that crosswalk because the cars can't see you because they're going too fast. For me and my wife and our daughter and son and granddaughter to walk down the street, we literally have to jaywalk across so that we can see oncoming traffic. The one stop sign in our neighborhood, Jedediah Smith, there's no crosswalk there. Yes, I've read the regulation and it says any intersection is deemed as a crosswalk, but wouldn't it be smart to put a crosswalk sign there to show people? Because you know what? If you've driven that road, people stop and go, stop and go. It's the California stop, right? I drive it every day, multiple times per day. It's unsafe, and we're looking for you to help us now. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is LaSalle D., followed by Amy.
Good evening, Chairman Carter and fellow commissioners. Thank you for listening to the residents this evening. We really appreciate what you're trying to do, and I can tell there's a genuine concern for our community, and you really want to try to come up with a solution based on what the staff report suggesting, as well as input from the community, so thank you. My family moved to Temecula in 1989. I've seen this city grow and traffic increase, and I currently live in the Los Ranchitos community off of De Portola Road. It is nearly impossible to get in and out of my house with the posted speed limit of 45 miles per hour. But people speeding by they're usually at 50 miles or 60 sometimes, so it's literally like living off of a highway. Slowing down to enter my driveway, I risk being rear-ended, and in fact, about a few months ago, we had a contractor working at our house, and that very thing happened. We were in our front yard, and we literally heard the smack, and he had been rear-ended, just waiting in that center lane, trying to make a left-hand turn into our driveway. You can try to imagine what it's like coming to a full stop when you're on the freeway or on a highway. This is what it's like trying to get into my home every day. To exit my driveway, it's just as difficult. Patiently waiting for the perfect opportunity to merge into fast-moving traffic is a challenge, and not to mention that I now have children that are learning to drive. The other day I had my daughter's friend that came over, and her mom wouldn't let her leave out of my driveway because she said, she's too new, this is really frightening. Not to mention having my son try to take the trash cans out, especially when it's nighttime. The other day he came in and said, Mom, I almost got hit by a car. I would hate to see that happen in our community. I really encourage you to evaluate the speed limits on other residential streets. Today when I got here, I went the long way and I drove down Paba, and from Margarita I noted that the speed limit was 45 miles an hour, but just shortly after it's only 40 miles per hour, and we counted 5 driveways on that street. In comparison to the number of driveways that are off of De Portola, logically, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a traffic commissioner, but some things just doesn't make sense. So driving through any residential street in Temecula, even getting here, I'm looking down and it's 25 miles per hour, 25 miles per hour. What logic does it make to simply increase the speed limit based on the fact that people are already breaking the law, driving faster than that warrants it to be increased? It just doesn't make sense in my mind. So I really encourage you to look at some enhanced measures in addition to what staff's recommending tonight, and see if there might be more solutions that could better help you work with the community. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy, followed by Madeline.
evening, everybody. My name's Amy, and I've been a resident in Los Ranchitos for almost 10 years now. And I'm an avid trail rider and equestrian, so I came to just add a little bit about the horse side of things and let you guys know how the crosswalks and all that are going. So, kind of like everybody else here, I think the biggest thing, my biggest worry is that, especially pertaining to the crosswalks, a speed limit of 45, what happens is, we go up to the crosswalk and we push the button and we wait, and some really nice people try to slow down for you. But I've seen people get rear-ended slowing down from you before. I've watched accidents happen in front of me. It's also not really designated very clearly how far away from the crosswalk they actually should be waiting, and the flashing lights themselves are directly above the crosswalk. So I think, and I'm not, a professional at this either, but I think we need some kind of setbacks to get people to slow down and back off before they're at the crosswalks, because they're coming up going 45 and they're locking brakes. And the scariest one, well, I've had a lot of scary ones, but one of the scariest ones was about a year ago, maybe if that. I had walked out into the crosswalk and this nice lady stopped, and I wave and I look at drivers on both sides. I make sure they're looking at me, because a lot of times they're not. And somebody behind her decided to use our center lane and fly straight through the crosswalk and pass us. And, there's all kinds of users in the crosswalks. There's a lot of horses, but there's a lot of kids too. There's a lot of, pedestrians. And summer, I've got, several friends and neighbors. They want to be able to ride horses to each other's houses, and they want to be able to, enjoy this area we live in. So that's been really hard, horse-related. Another one is, the roundabout, I would not consider any kind of a horse crossing. As, some other people have said, there's physical crosswalk lines in the roundabout, but if you've noticed, they lead to the property owner's fence and curb, and there's nowhere to actually go once you get across those lines. So it's kind of a path to nowhere. I've done it on foot before, when I was out exercising, and I just kind of walk on the curb and scurry across, and it's pretty scary. So the thought for me of having more roundabouts go in, especially over at Jedediah Smith, where we rely on those stop signs right now to be able to get across the road, and no, there is no actual crosswalk. It's a little sketchy anyway, but the thought of having a roundabout in there, that's going to just destroy our trail system. We're not going to be able to get across to another roundabout, and we don't currently cross at the roundabout. So I would really like to see stop signs. I know it's not helping the flow of traffic, but a horse through windshield is also not going to help the flow of traffic, and it's going to kill the horse and it's going to kill the drivers. So that's a very, very big concern for me. Another one, if I can get into my notes here, I'm not sure, and maybe someone can tell me what I think it said it was a pathway or something about the trail. So it said level 1. What is that exactly?
Yeah, it's a class 1, called a class 1 trail. It's basically just an off-street trail.
Okay, so is that, and I didn't see on the map where you guys were talking about, but there's a very specific area where we come out, I think it's kind of between Yorba and Vallejo, and we have to ride on the side of the road. Or we could cross and ride on the other side of the road, but either way, to continue on the way our trail goes, we have to ride on the side of the road. So right now we're riding in the bike lane, and when you're on an animal and you're riding in the bike lane and you have people going the speed limit, right, 45, I mean, the smallest thing that will just cause your horse to make a mistake, a trip, a spook, a jump, a dog running out of the neighbor's yard, anything coming from that side that's going to push a horse, an increment of about this big, you're in the lane. So I really would love it if we could do some kind of, we call them bridle paths, but it's just a walking footpath.
Yeah,
And is that what they're talking about?
Yeah, that class 1 trail would be approximately 10 feet wide and would include the rail fences.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would, make me feel better, especially riding out with youth riders. And, there's actually a lot of youth today. Could all of you youth riders and people in here stand up and just say hi, stand up, so let them know you came down, that you guys care and want somewhere safe to ride. Yeah, there's quite a few of them, and, I want them to be able to grow up like I did and be able to go out on their horses and enjoy the outdoors. Everyone wants these kids outside, but it's terrifying for them to go outside in our neighborhood. So I will leave it at that. Thank you, guys.
Our next speaker is Madeline, followed by Kenzie Ellis.
Hello. I usually ride my bike to my teacher's house that I ride horses at, and it's very scary doing that because people are going above the speed limit, and the horse crosswalks that I usually use, the flashing lights don't really do anything. People see it as optional, like, should I slow down? Okay, I won't. And many horses there have been hurt, and I don't think that's okay. And another roundabout right there would make things even worse, and I think stop signs are a lot better of an alternative. And flashing lights like before that, because cars stop like right in front of it, and the middle lane people also go straight through, and that's not really fun to ride through, and it's very dangerous too. And I think lowering the speed limit would make things a lot better because when the people go too fast and then they can't see you, and then they end up getting run over. And I think that lowering the speed limit would be better, and more flashing lights and more horse crosswalks. And me and my sisters, we like to go to Old Town on our bikes too, because it's fun. But it's not very fun when you can get run over. In the crosswalk on Old Town French Street, it doesn't work. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. Like, you push the button, and it doesn't really work, and then you have to wait for no one to be going across the thingy, and it's not fun, and it's very dangerous, and I don't really think that that's something that we want to have in our neighborhood. And in Red Hawk, you would never have like living on a highway, pretty much. You would never have the speed limit that high. Like in my friends' neighborhoods up there, the speed limit is like 25, maybe 30. And I feel like we should also have the rights to have a lower speed limit too, even though we don't have as much houses and we're not in a truck-home neighborhood. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Excuse me. Madeline, how old are you?
I just turned 10 in May.
Outstanding job.
Our next speaker is Kenzie Ellis, followed by Julie.
Good evening. My name is Kenzie. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the horse crossings. I've been riding in the Los Ranchitos area for about 6 years now. On the 4th of July, me and my friends were crossing at one of the designated light-up horse crossings. And we had one car stop and there was no car coming on the other side. And we came inches away from getting hit because of speeding drivers. And they don't see the light-up lights until they're already on top of them. And this has happened multiple times to us, but this one was the one that came inches from hitting us. I think we need clear stop signs at the crossings, and I also think that we need to put them further away so people have more time to slow down, because it seems like they only see it once they're right up against it. And that's all. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Julie, followed by Kev.
Thank you for listening to our concerns. My name is Julie, and I'm 13, and I've been riding for quite some time now in these neighborhoods, and it is pretty sketchy, and the roads are very sketchy to ride on because no one wants to pay attention to us and be aware of us when we are riding. It is getting very dangerous for us to ride on the streets and in the horse crossings. Stop signs would be a very good idea, and a roundabout I feel like would be pretty sketchy to do because if there were stop signs, I feel like it'd be a lot better because then people actually stop, and then like a certain distance that you can stop before the stop sign so we can get across the roads. So please do what you can do to keep our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kev, followed by Mark.
Will this show up on there as well? Like if I put it here? The image,
Yeah,
right?
just
but
put it
will they see it behind?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So I'm not a man of statistics. I've lived in Temecula Valley for going on 15 years now. I've lived in Los Ranchitos for going on 7 years. As you can tell, I am an equestrian. I want to first and foremost thank all of you for being here and taking the time to listen to the concerns. Out of respect for the people behind me and all of you, I'm about to show you an image that is very graphic, but this is what happens when a horse and car collide. Can you see it?
He's coming to help you here.
Oh. It's not pretty. And you don't really need it in focus to get the gravity of it, but like I said, I'm not a man of statistics, and some might look at this photograph and argue, yes, it happened at night. Things like this, thankfully, have not happened to me. With the story that you heard 2 speakers ago, I was present for that. To say it was terrifying was an understatement. Not only the person riding this vehicle, riding in the vehicle, or riding the horse, I don't know if they made it or not, but it's pretty graphic. And the person in that vehicle was, somebody's daughter, somebody's husband, somebody's wife, the story. I would hate for something like this to happen in this community. So I implore all of you to please consider reducing the speed limit in this residential area, because it is a residential area. I think that if something like this happens, it'll be a black mark on this city. And I hope that day never comes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mark, followed by Yolanda.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Thank you for your time and for providing the opportunity for us to address our concerns regarding any plans to widen Yanez and DePortola roads and to request to reduce the posted speed limit, old traditions, and new opportunities. My name is Mark Letourneau. I'm here tonight with family members who live in Los Ranchitos community. The United States Marine Corps transferred us to from Japan to Camp Pendleton in early 2000, and we purchased our home in Temecula because of the old traditions and new opportunities. After I retired from an exciting career as a Marine, I started a small business in Temecula, and we employ our Temecula community neighbors. Not surprisingly, we are also active volunteers in the community. On a Saturday evening, just this last April, I was resting comfortably in bed when a crashing sound called all of us to the front yard. A speeding driver had lost control of her car and crashed through trees and bushes and a wooden fence and came to a stop in our front yard at 7:40 on a Saturday evening. Fortunately, no one was injured, but it could have been far worse. The negligent driver barely missed striking our eldest daughter, who was sitting in her car on the driveway, by less than 5 feet. The driver's auto insurance, AAA, just so you know, has only $5,000 coverage for property damage, and our property damage was more than twice that. So we're still in negotiations with our insurance carrier. If this driver was driving slower, she would not have lost control of her new Infiniti convertible sports car, and she would not have crashed and ended up in our front yard. Our driveway is only about 200 feet from a four-way stop, and every day as we're entering and exiting our driveway, it's not uncommon to have horns honked and people waving their middle fingers at us because we're slowing them down as they're traveling through our community. Weekdays at 5 a.m. when we're driving on Yanez and DePortola roads heading to the gym, we're often passed by people driving at speeds in excess of 80 miles an hour. People traversing in and through our community are often driving faster than the posted 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, and you know that creating a wider thoroughfare will only encourage an increase in the speed, frequency, and lethality of the accidents that result in injuries and death. I ask you to please oppose any widening of Yanez and DePortola roads and to decrease the posted speed limits along those thoroughfares. Please help us protect our homes. Please help us protect our properties, the Los Ranchitos community, our equine traditions, and our city's history and heritage for the enjoyment of everyone. Old traditions and new opportunities is a great slogan, and the connection to our past is equally as important as the bridge to our future. Thank you, and thank you also to the members of the committee that met with the community members as well. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Semper Fi.
Commissioners.
Our next speaker is Yolanda Wagner, followed by Dr. Israel Gutierrez.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Yolanda Wagner. This is my daughter, Gabriana Wagner. She's 13. I've lived here in Temecula pretty much my entire life, since 1985, back when there wasn't any traffic. And this is my hometown, and it's changed dramatically. It's nearly impossible, and almost getting rear-ended is a daily occurrence when we come in and out of our driveway. It's even more challenging when I'm towing a horse trailer with my horse in there. And horses are large animals. They're ton animals. It's discouraging to see people honking at us, waving the middle finger when I'm entering and exiting my driveway, and almost getting hit almost every time I exit and enter with my trailer. Just this last Sunday, my daughter was riding her horse across the Portola to one of our neighbors' homes, and because there's not a horse crossing in front of our home, I got out of our driveway and my SUV stopped traffic on the one side going on DePortola going east. And she was actually coming home from the neighbor's house. And there was a car behind me speeding, not realizing that I was stopping. I even had my flashers on, and this vehicle just went around, and if my daughter hadn't stopped, she would have hit my daughter and her horse. And so it was very scary for me as a mother, and it was very scary for my daughter. So I really encourage you guys to decrease the speed limit and add some sort of path or trail. I like this trail one that you were discussing earlier for our horses, and other than a bicycle lane. So I really encourage that, and thank you. My daughter would like to say a few words.
So riding, I know last year when I rode my horse, on the crosswalk, when you're coming down the hill, there's one coming down the hill around the corner. A lot of people don't see that crosswalk because you're coming, or horse crossing because you're coming around the corner, and you don't have enough time to stop and like actually see the horse. And so I feel like that could cause a lot of accidents. And I think we need to, like, the flashing lights don't really help, so I think we need to improve that a little bit.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Dr. Israel Gutierrez, followed by Eric.
Thank you, guys, Commissioner. Thank you, guys, staff members, for the work you've done. I understand the intricacies of moving around different set of rules. I moved into Temecula Valley 4 years, almost 5 years ago. I met with my family, basically because we are equestrians, not only compete at the profession, but we are proud to have the daughters being bred in raising in a home that has horses and farm animals. My daughters came with me today because I asked them to come in and show their faces because they are riders and they come out of their house. I live right on the roundabout. You have several pictures of. I've seen all those accidents, seen the horse taken off. My wife is the person who called the 911 that the horse was decapitated. So there's all of that is happening. Now, in front of when you get out of my driveway, what you find obviously is, first of all, you cannot get out of the horse safely, right? You cannot go into the trails that everybody's talking about because there's no trails that you can go into, right? You have to use the 2 feet of ground between the pavement road and the drain, the storm drain on the left, to walk the horse through it, other than going to the bicycle lane or cycle lane before the roundabout. So that's extremely unsafe. So I have, how we do it is I take I walk in front of the girls when they go out, and I hand walk all the horses through before to get to the corner to get to the trails. Okay, that's the only way I can do it, and it has to be very early in the morning, 6 in the morning, or late in the evening, so that we avoid the traffic. So it's obviously not safe. Second is the issue with the roundabout, right? The roundabout is, I even talked to the engineers when they were doing the roundabout, because they decided to put this concrete pad right in front of some of the properties in front of the roundabout. Well, the only way I can get out of that with a horse trailer is going right over your concrete pad so that I can turn into the roundabout. Obviously, it's an exercise. I have to use my family to help the traffic stop so I can get safely out of the trailer and go into the house with the trailer. So we're stopping the people at 45 miles per hour to be able to turn into my driveway and get out of my driveway. So I think, there's several issues that are faulty here. Obviously, the design, thinking that people have horse trailers out of these driveways, not just cars, and be able to get in and out of those is important. But also being able to walk out of those homes with horse trailer, with a horse, or with a safety net, right? I seen the plan, and I'm glad. Thank you for showing those plans in front of us. But as you can tell, those horse trails don't connect to the inner road. We live on inner road. There's several homes on inner road with horses, and we have no way to connect to those trails, as you heard some of the speakers today. The other thing that is happening is there's no sidewalks, right? I cannot safely tell my girls to go to a Starbucks right on Temecula Parkway. How are they gonna cross the roundabout? How are they gonna go from the house, just getting out of the house, into the properties where there's no sidewalks, right? And so there's a huge concern. So living in a community that is not addressing the very basic, or living in a community that is walking out of your house, and not to mention, trying to get out of the house with horses or any of that nature. So I think it's important to consider all those safety areas before proceeding with any further with any other plans. I think safety has to be first. And as a physician, I've seen several things that people don't see, right? And I think it's terrible to see that in our communities where we're moving for a safety net. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Eric, followed by Greg Cole.
Thank you very much. Hello. My name is Dr. Eric McKillican, and I'm here to represent myself, resident, as well as my wife, Dr. Jennifer Rosenberg. We both live on Deep Portola, and we experience the challenges of getting in and out of our home every day. I apologize, I can't really pronounce your last name, but Nick, is there a chance you could show the trail system that we have?
Yes, give me 1 second.
First, I'd like to state I am opposed to widening the road, and I am for lowering the speed limit. There's the two major safety concerns that I wanted to bring up have already been mentioned here, but one of them is the trail system. And we travel this quite a bit, and we've got, from the south of Deep Portola, we've got one trail that leads up, and we've got options to go around. But right there at crossing from Yanez to right where that red dot is to Vallejo is an area where you have to walk your horses on the side of the road. Sometimes the trees are overgrown, which pushes you into the road, and it limits your ability to bring certain people on the trail, and it limits your ability to bring certain horses on the trail. Not every rider experienced enough can manage that. Some people driving think it's fun to honk at horses. Some people speed up. Some motorcycles like to rev their engines, all of which are safety issues for the rider and the people on the road as well. The second that was brought up already is getting in and out of our property. We have a few trailers, and one's a 4-horse with living quarters, it's very large. Another's a little 2-horse, and despite that, we have to make a right-hand turn, and so we have to use the center lane to make that right-hand turn into our property. Cars don't stop and let us turn very easily. We have to get somebody out of the car and play traffic cop, and that's dangerous. They'll whiz by, they'll honk, they'll expletives. It's a very dangerous experience, not only getting them into the property, but also getting from a dead stop with 4 live horses in a trailer up to speed. It's very, very dangerous. So I'd like to just conclude with the concept that I was listening to here today, and that is that it's either declared or it's going to be declared an artery. And I think that what we need to really think about is an artery is a thoroughfare used for people to travel from one destination to another. And this is really a residential road that is used for our children, our animals, and I think that using the word artery needs to be thought about. If it's not already classified as an artery, I'm opposed to it being an artery. I'm for stop signs, I'm for reduction of speed, and making this a safer residential community environment. So thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Greg Cole, followed by Donna Cole.
Well, you got my name, Greg Cole. I live at 44140 La Paz, where they like to go through my fence. But my safety thing is La Paz Street, 6 houses, a horse crossing, speed limit's 25. My estimate, 90% of the people that go through there are going 40 to 60. There is one patrol officer that does write tickets. He's not there that often. He can't sit there all day long. But we do need more police along all our corridors through there. I know they can't just sit there and write tickets all day, but they probably could. And the other thing is, I would really like to see speed bumps on La Paz to slow everybody down, because we got it down to 20, Nick got it down to 25 miles an hour. They don't slow down at all. They're still doing 40 to 60 all day long. The other thing is, it's already been brought out, is painted crosswalks in Inez. There basically is none. You cross the road at your own risk. People don't see a crosswalk, they're not going to slow down. And you need them all the way from Margarita all the way back to the pond. And one last thing is, the roundabout, to me, is a poor design. You can tell by all the accidents that we've had there. My wife will tell you about those. But one question that I asked Jessica Alexander is, if they put another roundabout at Jedediah Smith, what are they going to do with it in 3 to 5 years when they get their funding and widen the road to 4 lanes? Now the roundabout's no good. You just spent $500,000 or more. I'd really like to see the roundabout torn out and go back to the stop sign in front of my house. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Donna Cole, followed by Ashley Arms.
Good evening. My name is Donna Cole, and that was my husband. Well, we're on accident number 12 through our fence and our property. Not only did the gentleman run straight through the roundabout and knock the horse off of his feet, he then continued through our fence and onto our property, leaking oil and transmission fluid everywhere. And luckily, he is okay. He was checked out by the paramedics. He's okay. He's lucky to be alive. I don't know what the city's plans are for the horse, but in my opinion, he's a clear target for cars to hit and should not be put back. Basically, my husband and I are tired of quotes. Number 1, we will take your concerns into consideration. Number 2, we will look into your concerns. Number 3, the city is fully aware of the problems concerning your property damage, and we are sorry for your inconvenience. Number 4, we will be getting back to you regarding our decision. These are just a few of the so-called answers that we have received every time we have spoken to your committee. City Councilwoman Jessica Alexander, Nick of the Traffic Division, and countless others. It all comes down to the fact that the roundabout was negligently designed and constructed. It is not centered in the middle of the roadway. It's off to the side. That's not the way normal roundabouts are built. Please, no more quotes, excuses, or promises. Just do something. Also, the water-filled city barricades surrounding the roundabout and the curve where our fence is damaged are nothing more than an eyesore. There is nothing to protect in the roundabout except some rocks, and our fence is beyond protection. We are in favor of speed bumps on La Paz, which we have been told impede first responders. Most first responders use Inez, not La Paz. I would also like to say, regarding the flashing signs that you were talking about putting by the roundabout to alert people that the roundabout is there, I think if you ask the officers, the deputy and the officer, flashing lights cause alcohol-impaired people to go towards them. So I don't need any more people hitting my property. And I also would like to say that 1 hour before the man went through the roundabout and hit the horse, knocking it completely off, all that's left is its ankles, my husband was standing next to the fence where he went through. He was working in our yard. I don't want to come home and find someone has been killed on my property, and I don't want to lose a family member. So if you could please, please do something. I'm so tired of this. And this was at 2:30 in the afternoon. This man was not drunk. He was 70 years old, and he said his foot got stuck on the accelerator. It's not a total alcoholic problem. It's people that just drive too fast. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Ashley Arms, followed by Stephen Benavides.
Hello, good evening.
Evening.
My name is Ashley Arms. I have been a resident of Los Ranchitos for most of my life. Our family came to Los Ranchitos in 1985. And a big portion of my property is on Yanez. So there's a couple of things. I don't understand why non-residents have the annoyance or are annoyed by the residents pulling into their driveways or riding their horses, or like these kids riding their horses. When I was 12 years old, I used to ride all around Los Ranchitos. No issues, down Santiago into Old Town. I would never let my kid ride around Los Ranchitos at this moment because of these drivers, and for whatever reason, that they're speeding, texting, if they're old and their foot gets stuck. It's not acceptable because this is a residential area, and this is where a lot of us grew up, and we want to raise our kids, and we want our kids to be safe. So I know speed limits, you're saying we can't use the speed bumps because of the first responders. Why can't the first responders use 79? Why are they going through a residential area to get to the hospital when they can use 79 to get to the hospital, right? Or I don't know. I'm just saying I can hear there's first responders 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, because I live right on Yanez. So I don't know why they're going through the residential area in the first place, but we're going to protect them when they can use another route, and we can make our community safer by putting in speed bumps. We could put speed bumps in before the roundabout, so they have to slow down to get into the roundabout. After the roundabout, we can add the stop signs to slow it down. These people do not have the right to destroy our community so they can get to A to B faster and use our residential road. I just don't see the logic in it. I hate how unsafe my community is now, back to when it was in the 90s and 80s. This is ridiculous, you know? It's just, I don't understand it. And it's going to be a horrible situation when one of these kids or one of these riders are gonna get hit and killed, or somebody's working in their yard and a car goes flying through there. Another idea I had was toll roads. Have them pay to use that road. If we can't get this to be a safe residential area, have them pay to use it. And maybe that will lessen the traffic. Not everybody's gonna wanna spend money to go down Yanez through our residential area to get to A to B. I think that's all I had. Another thing is, with all the traffic, I get people throwing things at my horses in the pasture. Trash I'm finding, bottles, broken bottles, and then my animals are out there grazing, and then I end up with a $10,000 vet bill of surgery. That's ridiculous. We need to protect Los Ranchitos. Old traditions, yes. Los Ranchitos is an old tradition. One of the first neighborhoods out there. Back in the 80s, when there was a Jack in the Box and a stop sign on Rancho California, there is no opportunity or new opportunities by making this a 4-lane highway. If we're having these issues with a 2-lane highway and you make it a 4-lane highway, somebody's gonna die. A horse is gonna get hurt. There's gonna be more issues because there's more people going down that road. So it's a death sentence to enlarge Yanez to a 4-lane highway, in my opinion. That is it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Steven, followed by Steve Sommers.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to be heard. My name is Steve Benavides. I'm at 29001 Inez Road. And I'd like to incorporate by reference our opening speaker, Lewis's comment. Excuse me, I've been on boat for 3 days. Because I think that's the best summary of our problems. We've been at all the meetings, but I'd like to address the issues that my particular property presents, because I have a Jekyll and Hyde issue. I'm the third ranch down from Santiago as you turn right and head towards the roundabout, which is a 1/4 mile from the Santiago light, which is a very important milestone, because they're just hitting the top of 3rd gear at night as they go by my property at 100 miles an hour or plus. And the highest rate, when we met with Nick in our private meeting with the traffic advisory, they said the highest recorded speeds on that stretch that you proposed to turn into a 4-lane drag strip was in front of my property, in that stretch, that first stretch. When they turn right on Santiago and head down, they're going full speed by the time they get to my house. Not included in all the accidents are the 6 mailboxes that my neighbor and I have lost. And my neighbor, the Rodriguezes that live on the 2nd ranch, they've lined their entire front apron with tree stumps to keep traffic off their property. Okay, well, the next ranch down is mine. All those traffic signs that Nick talks about that they put up for the horse crossings, that's on my property. When the next horse dies or the next rider dies, it's going to die on my property. And it's probably going to happen there because the speeds there are much more than they are at the 2nd crossing further down Inez Road. And when those, I feel sorry, I plow and mow the front of my apron to keep it clear so the horses can ride up past my property so they can cross at Inez and go up to Cabrillo. And if that wasn't there, and when you widen this street, if you widen it, you're not only going to destroy my property, you're going to eliminate that access to get from that horse crossing up there unless you're walking on a bike path. And that's not right. We were here long before Temecula became a city. This is a residential equestrian community. So the best idea I've heard, I don't want to see motorcycle officers sitting down giving tickets to keep idiots off my street. What I'd really love to see is Lewis's idea about stop signs all the way down, like Front Street, because I love traffic. I'm not here to complain about the traffic. I love the traffic. They're entertained by my wife's roses. But when I came here tonight, I had to turn left out of my driveway. And there's no place to turn left. So I have to turn into what's left of my little third lane and sit there and force my way into it, which is a lot easier in my truck. But my Tesla, they don't want to move over. And I finally had to, and I didn't get a finger. I appreciate your effort to mitigate things, but when you put that roundabout in down the street from me, you ruined my neighbors' lives. And you encouraged ambient users to come through our property. Those people that are in front of my house all day long in the afternoon, I love them because they're not going 100 miles an hour. They're not hitting my mailboxes. They're going slow and they're not running into anything except maybe each other. I feel sorry for them, but if you put stop signs in, they're going to go away because Apple Traffic and Google Traffic will pick it up right away and they'll modify the distribution algorithm and send the traffic somewhere else. I can tell you the day they found out that it was easier to go through our property because all of a sudden I got a line of traffic that I can't turn left on in front of my house all afternoon. So the sign, by the way, that big horse sign with the flashing lights and the photo cell and everything else, a drunk driver took that out. That's the only accident you have on record because they don't stop when they get Gil's mailboxes or my mailboxes. But that sign you put up, that totaled the car. That stopped him. So I really like Lewis's summary. Listen to my neighbors. Our lives are getting ruined. And I think your plans to widen the streets and put in another roundabout is a mistake. And please listen to us because I don't want a dead horse on my property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Steve Sommers, followed by Stacy Jakutis.
Well, good evening. I don't think I can possibly add anything significant to what my neighbors have said about Yanez and DePortola. I think you've had some young people pull at your heartstrings. I think you've had some residents maybe shock you a little bit with what we saw. But I come at this from a slightly different perspective because I've been a civil engineer. I've owned a civil engineering company for 30 years. I'm in the city. My employees live here. My family lives here. My sons are engineers. They live here. So we have a little bit different perspective about this. It's not as emotional to me as it is factual. And good engineering is not always out of a book. I can tell you what I may not have said that when I was 20, but at 60, I can tell you it comes from experience. It comes from having made mistakes. It comes from having mistakes be built in concrete that I can't not look at. The fact of the matter is, logic is what needs to be employed here. I'm not going to say a roundabout is a good or a bad thing, but it needs to be executed properly. That one's not executed properly. All of those cars are going off on the left 1/3 of that because when they're coming in at that speed, they don't see the roundabout. Their sight distance is much further down the road, and it appears as though that road just turns. You don't see the roundabout. It's not properly lit. None of us really want a bunch of lights there. But you showed some roundabouts that were probably pretty darn effective because they were centered in the roadway. So just drive that. That's all I ask. Go drive it. You'll see for yourself. Number two, I'm also a land developer. I can't even count how many projects I've developed, built, designed for others. But I can tell you, if I brought to Ron, who I respect significantly, I love Ron, but if I came to Ron and said, Ron, I need to put 20 or 30, 40 driveways out onto this collector, you okay with that? He would laugh at me because he knows I know better. So flip the script. City, why are you trying to put a collector where there's a bunch of driveways? It doesn't make any sense. So we haven't lived here that long. My wife's uncle, Bob Morris, was here from pretty much the beginning. Uncle Bob loved that neighborhood. Uncle Bob, my wife used to ride from his ranch over to Rancho California Road to show when she was a little kid. We still have horses. Now our kids come over and ride. Our grandkids come over and ride. We can't ride those horse trails down there. There's no way. And it's an unfortunate thing because it's a unique neighborhood. It's a special neighborhood. But rather than maybe championing that, if you guys widen that road, or if you let it go status quo, it's going to ruin the neighborhood. These people's property values must be tremendously devalued. I can't even imagine. I live interior, so it doesn't affect me. But I feel for them, and I listen to them, and I just think, man, this is just bad design. See, my dad was a Midwesterner, and he had a saying for everything. You cannot make $1 out of 75 cents. You can't. It's not going to be a collector. You've put a collector on one end, you've put a collector on the other end, where nothing fronts those. And where there are houses that driveways front, garages front, you've put in another frontage road next to Yanez. So you yourselves know you can't put driveways out there. So the only thing that makes any sense is to not consider this a collector in your general plan, and you need to put stop signs in. That's the only thing that's going to work, and allow these folks, they're nice people, and they should get to enjoy their quality of life. Some of them predate all of this traffic. So let's listen to them. And I tell you that at the expense of probably my lifestyle to some extent, because when you put those traffic, if you were to put that many traffic stops in, everybody's going to come down Cabrillo, where I live. And I've been passed on Cabrillo. I mentioned in a meeting before, I had to pull over because of sight distance limitations. I had to actually pull over and stop and pull in front of a guy who was about to run down 4 pedestrians. Because if he came over, we have vertical sight distance issues, and they come through at 40 miles an hour, and they cannot see the other side of the crest. We also have horizontal issues in there. So as you deal with this, please don't forget the interior of the neighborhood, because we're going to have that many more problems if we have that many more folks coming. I love the Rose Garden. A lot of people love the Rose Garden, and those folks come flying through our neighborhood. So they know it's there, they know that there's a cut through there, so please consider that also. And I just want to go on record, because if this does become a collector and it does get ugly, I want all this stuff to definitely be on record. Finally, I would like to offer this. I have an engineering staff. I have traffic engineers that I use all the time. If I come to you with a proposal as a developer, or if I come to you with a proposal and I'm representing a developer, you guys are going to peer review anything I do. Absolutely. Because there is absolute wisdom in numbers. Everybody's had a different experience in engineering. Everybody brings something different to the table. If you guys are going to push any of these issues, I will, at my own expense, hire my own traffic engineers that I use when I develop, and I would like to peer review your work. Because not to say it's wrong, not to say it's right, but I think the chances are you can maybe not make some of the same mistakes. I think if a few more eyes, maybe that roundabout would have at least been more effective. So I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'll spend my own money for my neighbors, because I care about them. And I honestly want my grandkids to be able to go through those horse trails. I know I've exceeded my time. Thank you for your being gracious, appreciate it. I thank all my neighbors for doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Stacy, followed by Molly Howard.
I don't think I'm going to keep going over and over and over what everyone has said. Same sentiments. We live on Yanez. I just wanted to make a couple of statements or questions. I heard what you said about how the speed limits are set. I just have a question. Doesn't it seem kind of crazy that the people that use our road and speed through it, our neighborhood, get to set the speed limit, as opposed to everything you've heard tonight? And I know maybe it's a state law or whatever, but it's just that's my question for you guys to just think about. And then you also, you made a statement, I think Mr. Sullivan did, about how most of us were maybe here first, and that horse has sentimental value. And it absolutely does, and I wasn't here first, but I know Jack was, who the horse is there for. And I just ask that you would please think about him, think about the people that did establish this neighborhood, and maybe protect what was established. And then those of us that came behind and purchased the homes, yes. Everyone's letting you know here tonight how we feel, what we want. The real question, I think, is do you all really believe that old traditions are part of Temecula and important to keep? Because that's what Los Ranchitos is. And so I think it's then up to you guys to decide. Do you protect some of the old traditions, any of the old traditions, the old tradition of Los Ranchitos, the first neighborhood, if you will, that was here? Or do you just let the traffic run through because we need to allow the traffic? And that's it. All the same things, you know, the safety, the horse trailers, the whatever, but thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Molly Howard, followed by James Howard.
Good evening, thank you. I live at 41511 Yorba Avenue. I also live on Inez Road. I haven't been here as long as some of my other neighbors. I've been here for 3 years. I don't have horse, I have chickens, and more importantly, I have 3 boys. My boys are 10, my twins are 10, and my oldest is 13. The only regret about moving into this neighborhood is the inability to walk or ride bikes in the neighborhood safely. So I appreciate all the comments of my neighbors and want to also echo, I live on the same block as the roundabout you've heard so much about. Greg and Donna are my neighbors, and I've seen cars, gone up in flames on my block. And so when my boys try to ride their bike across Inez to go visit the Rose Garden, I don't have them cross at that roundabout because I find it so much more dangerous. And I appreciate Amy's comments and articulation about how there is no sidewalk there. It's more dangerous. I have to walk on stones to walk around the roundabout. So for the children, not just as well as horses, I'd like to also articulate that we need safe sidewalks and safe crossings. I'm also in support of 4-way stops to stop the traffic. I am a nurse. I also have a certificate in public health nursing and agree, I feel my children are relegated to our cul-de-sac, and it's safer for our communities and neighborhoods when they can safely explore the neighborhood, be on their bikes, visit each other's homes, and not worry about traffic safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Howard, followed by our final speaker, Robert Chen.
I don't have anything at all with experience about anything. I just know that I've been here for 3 years, which isn't that long, but I've met 5 of my neighbors. You can't explore the neighborhood, which is really hard when you really like having friends. So please listen, and please make it possible to be able to move around. Please, and thank you.
Hey, thank you, James. Hey, James, you don't have to have a lot of experience. You ride a bike. That's enough experience to know what's dangerous in your neighborhood in that. So, thank you.
Our final speaker, Robert Chen.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you guys for your time. So I guess the blessing and the curse of being the last one is everything that needs to be said has already been said, so it's going to be brief. I'm going to use my fully allotted 25 minutes. Big thank you for the CHP and the sheriffs for being here. Thank you guys for your enforcement actions. It's been fantastic. We're very new to the neighborhood. We enjoy Los Ranchitos. It's been a fantastic place to live. We live in the interior, so all this information coming to light out here during this presentation regarding the information on Yanez does make me very concerned. We do have 2 horses. I have a Frisian quarter, and my wife has a quarter horse herself. We do ride the trails extensively, and I have noticed that on the Viejo crossing, it is very, very dangerous. So my duty here tonight is I'm mandated by my wife to come here and share that with you guys. So what I noticed today coming home is the lighting for that sign, the horse crossing. It is very, very, it's not at eye level. And I feel that between the sign and where the crossing is, driving at the speed limit of 45 miles per hour, I did the calculations, it's about 2 seconds we're on that crossing. So, and also there's a little bit of a curvature in the road. So for somebody, maybe they're on their phone or talking to their friends and not paying attention, it comes up very quick. So it would be fantastic if you guys can extend the distance between the signs or the flashing lights. What has always caught my attention is there's blinking lights embedded in the road, and whether it be a non-linear pattern, it does grab your attention. Maybe we can have that instead of 50 yards back, be 75 yards or something, giving the individuals driving just more of a heads up. That'd be fantastic. I am also against enlarging the roads from a 2-lane to 4-lane. I think being here, I can see that although I live in the interior, my neighbors live on Yanez, and that's super dangerous. We are a family of outdoors activities. We have RVs, as I'm sure everybody here has RVs or a horse trailer. We have horse trailers, we have boats, we have toys. And to come out, which is our access road to the freeway, is Vejo. So to come out Vejo, often I would have to wait for an extended period of time. And even when I do make my left to access the freeway, it becomes very dangerous, especially with a bigger vehicle. So I'm opposed to extending the road to 4 lanes. That would be horrendous in terms of equestrian traffic, pedestrian traffic, and more importantly, collision between horses and cars are, as we've seen in the very beautiful graphics today, it's not the best of scenarios for everybody. Also, my other concern is the roundabout at Jebediah Smith. We do not ride through the roundabouts or walk through the roundabouts right now at all. It is a very dangerous area. People are typically distracted. And I'm a little bit guilty of this, is when I drive it slow. But I know sometimes where I'm like, I wonder how fast I can take this thing. And I'm sure a lot of people have that experience as well.
So what was your fastest time?
About 120 with my eyes closed. So, but I think people have that experience. And for us, in terms of when we ride, we do not ride through that roundabout. We always go through Jebediah Smith. That stop sign is our absolute savior. It is the only way that we can stop traffic to make visual contact with the drivers and ride right across. So although we haven't been here for a long time, we love our neighbors, we love our community, we love just everything about what Temecula stands for. I guess everybody says old traditions, new opportunities. But for us, it's a new beginning here. And I want my children to grow up. They're 3 and 4 right now. I want them to grow up. I want them to ride. I want them to experience what a ranch-style living has to offer. And I think I really appreciate everybody's time here today. You guys up in the front and the people behind me. I think we have all been very thankful to be here today. Thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Again, thank you so much to everybody that's come down, and I just wanted to make a point of clarification before I make some comments and questions. The widening of the road is not on our agenda tonight, so under the law, we can't address that at all. But you can chat with Patrick when it will be coming up either before us or the city council. You said the general plan was?
That's most likely going to be sometime in 2024.
Okay. So if you hear us not responding to that, there's no direction we can provide at this time since it's not agendized. Clearly, this is a push-pull situation because, well, let me address 2 things first before I say that. When the idea of the traffic circle came before this committee, it was because that intersection, which had a 3-way stop, it was basically failed. Traffic was backing up on La Paz to Temecula Parkway. And, well, okay, but hang on. You're a board member. You may recall the HOA is the one that requested the roundabout. It's not the best solution necessarily to that intersection. An electronic signal would be, but it was very clear from the members of Los Ranchitos that it didn't fit the charm, and I agree, it doesn't fit the charm of your neighborhood. And that's where the push-pull kind of comes. And I just wanted to also address your initial comments that you're feeling like when I say we, the city, is ignoring you. And we're really not. It's a push-pull situation here because you guys preceded the city. That neighborhood was here before Temecula. And I don't think when Los Ranchitos was developed that anyone foresaw Temecula becoming Temecula and the growth and the everything that's gone on. So now we have a dichotomy of issues and solutions that don't necessarily go together. There's a lot of solutions that I know of as a commissioner that would solve a lot of your problems, but unfortunately, it would destroy the charm of the community. And we're sensitive to that, and we don't want to do that. Some of the solutions that were recommended, I can tell you that before I was a commissioner here in Temecula, I was chair of public safety up in a small city in LA County, and the city council there overrode the public safety concern of emergency vehicles and spent a fortune putting speed bumps on a majority of the residential streets. And within 9 months, they spent a bigger majority tearing them out because of the noise pollution complaints. Because unfortunately, the fools that are driving fast on your street also drive fast where those speed bumps are and make a lot of noise, and some even like to see if they can create a spark off their chassis and whatever. Again, that would not be a solution in my mind, besides the effect that it does have on our emergency vehicles that have to proceed that way. One speaker mentioned Temecula Parkway. Temecula Parkway is great when it's not our normal rush hours, but when it's our rush hour, it's very difficult to get to the hospital directly versus through your community. So we have a situation with a pre-existing equestrian charming community, and now a city, it's 114,000 plus residents, it's grown around you, and having this thoroughfare. So I know there's solutions, and I'm going to be discussing those when we make a motion. But I just ask that everyone understand, at least for myself, I am very empathetic for what you're going through. And it's not what you signed up for when you purchased your properties. And the solutions may come a little slower than you're used to because we have to kind of do a lot of investigating, and a lot of the civil engineer here will understand. We have to check things so that we know they'll work versus make it worse. And it's perhaps an example is the roundabout. Maybe it's made it worse. Maybe it's created more problems. And so this is going to take some investigation to do. And so I don't want you to think that we're just telling you we'll let you know or whatever. It's going to require investigation and process. But you certainly have my ears, you have my attention, and you have my commitment that I will work on this cause with you to create the best solution we can under the circumstances that exist, that being a beautiful old tradition equestrian center right in the middle of a city. And so please bear with us as we do that. That's it for my comments. Dave, do you have some comments?
Yeah, well, oh, there we go. Sorry, having a little trouble with my microphone there. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, sharing your thoughts. This is probably sets a record for public feedback that we've seen at our meeting, and it is very helpful, especially when the comments are as well researched and well reasoned as they have been tonight. Traditionally, this commission has taken a very measured, incremental approach to traffic calming, and in most cases, that serves our city very well, in most cases. But that said, this is the third time that this section of road has been on the agenda in as many years, and I think it's clear from the public testimony and the staff report and the facts on the ground that we are called to take a more vigorous pace with this. So in terms of the roundabout, I would be inclined to recommend all of the above in the staff report. For the redesign of the center of the roundabout, I'd like to see if there's a way that we can design that maybe not with hard concrete barriers, but some way to divert or absorb the momentum of these cars that are flying off the road, in a way that's not going to increase the severity of the accidents, but that will provide some protection for the property owners on the corner there. It's pretty devastating what we've heard is happening there. I'd also urge staff and law enforcement to explore the feasibility of a DUI checkpoint west of the roundabout between Santiago and La Paz. I know there are there's a lot of operational considerations that go into that. It might not be possible with the space there, but I would urge the staff and law enforcement to talk about that, explore the feasibility of that, and then at your discretion, if that's something that's doable, I think it could help with some of those accidents we're seeing there. I also fully support the equestrian crossing improvements as a means of connecting the trails there, as well as the Class 1. That's all very much needed. Just a small concern about that, though. I'm not so keen on using mid-block crosswalk as a traffic calming measure on its own. And so I just want to make sure that we sequence that in a way where we're putting more of those safety measures first and actually making it a safe place to cross there before we just put a crosswalk in. Let's see. Lastly, just a couple quick comments on the widening issue, and I promise it's not going to raise to the level of a substantial conversation that would get us in trouble with how things are agendized. But, this has been in the general plan since 1993, and it was hotly debated back then, too. Los Ranchitos, as we've heard, it was established before the city incorporated, and compromises were made at the time that not everyone was happy with, and maybe not everyone understood fully the ramifications of those at the time. And the conditions change a lot in 30 years. So the general plan revision is above the purview of this commission, but it is valuable to hear all your input about that, especially this early in the process. And the EIR, I think, will answer some of the questions that were raised tonight. It'll certainly provide a basis for that conversation going forward. And so I'd encourage everyone, I know you've been to all the commissions, you don't want this to get, the can to get kicked down the road, so to speak, but I would encourage you to stay engaged as the city moves through the general plan update process. There is time for more input before the city council ultimately makes their final decision on that. And I'm sure we'll be giving input on that as well. So I guess I'll end my comments there, just bringing it back to what we are here to discuss tonight, which is the safety measures that we can implement on these roads as they are built today. I really appreciate the collaboration between staff and the community. I think we have a really good list of potential near-term improvements here, as well as things to study more and send on to the city council. So I would be in favor of recommending all these just in a sequenced way so that we're putting the most effective safety measures up front.
Thank you. Sorry I had to step out. Our meetings usually last about 30 to 45 minutes. I drink a lot of water during the day. Enough said with that. I do appreciate the passion that you folks have, obviously, for your homes and your neighborhood. One thing that I kept hearing is reduce the speed limit. I don't want that to be a panacea. We could reduce the speed limit, we can't, but if we were able to reduce the speed limit tomorrow to 40, you're still gonna get people that'll disobey the law and speed. So those folks we have to deal with. I think the local folks that drive through there, myself included, abide by the speed limit. And we're respectful to you. I don't see that many folks on their horses, but on the other end of it, past Margarita on the east end, I see them in that, what is it, a level 1 trail. One question that I do have, is Los Ranchitos one of the neighborhoods that, or at least on Yanez and Di Portola, up for the sidewalks that we're doing for the other areas?
Actually, the ultimate classification, which Nick had up on the screen there earlier, does not include a concrete sidewalk, but includes basically just a DG path on both sides of the road. That would be the ultimate configuration.
Okay. That's better than what they have currently. So we, you know, and I heard the quotes, you know, the list of quotes that you have. This is going to be another one, but we hear you. You know, was that one already in there of your quotes? This is the first time I've heard of a lot of this stuff. And because we have these open lines of communication you have with the city, I'm sure that the group you have here now will be larger the next time as we move forward, because this is your neighborhood. These are changes that you want to see, and we can't make those changes without your input. And so I really appreciate all the time and effort that you did by coming down here and expressing your desires to have some change and change done now. We've heard you. I mean, I am not an engineer. I spent 30 years in law enforcement, so I know that the speed limit is not one of those things that you're gonna change and everything's gonna change with it. But trust me, things will change, and please stay connected with the city as we move forward, because I'm sure we'll have these again as we go forward. So thank you again, and I would move for a motion to go with the suggested by staff for the temporary, or the...
All right, I would move the recommendation that we direct staff to implement near-term traffic calming measures on Inez Road and Di Portola Road, and if we could have you also in that look at perhaps better warning systems for the horse crosswalks, further line of delineation for the safety of everybody, and also the height of the lights or some system with that. And that would be my motion. Did you get it all down? All right.
Before, and I'm sorry, I meant to bring this up, what is the feasibility of stop signs at all of those? Is that even a...
Well,
I know we haven't studied it, so you'd...
Yeah,
I'm catching you blind.
wouldn't be able to say, you know, exactly, but I can tell you they won't meet our technical warrants to have stop signs at those intersections. You know, whether or not that's something that is willing to be considered, I don't know.
Right, okay. Sorry to put you in that spot, but thank you.
So can I ask a question on that then for a moment? I'm assuming that to get the technical and to look at it. Whoops, sorry. That would be part of the long-term study versus the short, right?
That's what we would suggest, yes.
All right, okay. I just wanted to see if my motion needed an amendment.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Ackerman is absent. Carter?
Aye.
Maddox?
Aye.
Richardson is absent. And Sullivan?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks again, folks, for coming out and.
Well, we still have one other motion to make, if that's okay.
Yes.
I would move that we direct staff to continue to study the long-term traffic calming measures on Inez Road, DePortola Road.
I have no problem with that.
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay.
Just one vote is needed for that one, so we
Right,
won't need to
'cause
take
they're
roll
both
call again.
together.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I made it as two separate, so, all right, they'll just be combined? Okay.
If I can just add one more thing too, for the benefit of the residents here, is so the next time you'll see this issue on your agenda will most likely be when we've completed the speed survey, and if there's any change that needs to be made to the speed limit. I don't have a date when that would happen. I would say that it will be before the end of the calendar year, but I think that's when the next time you'll see this on your agenda.
Right, okay. And that's when we'll see you guys.
Thank you for coming out.
I won't drink a lot of water that day. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go on to division reports. Chief, please. Will we go CHP first and then, sorry.
Thank you, and thank you for having me again.
Oh.
So I'll go straight to enforcement activity. Enforcement activity is still slowly trending up. Like to trend a little bit faster, but hey, we're baby steps. We're getting there. So 829 citations issued, 1,395 total enforcement contacts. During the month of June, we did have a commercial special enforcement unit. So we had 37 commercial vehicles stopped, 14 speed violations, 1 following too close, 1 unsafe lane change, 8 out of lane violations, 8 scale bypassers, 9 other moving vehicle violations, and 21 mechanical. And I know all those numbers don't add up to the 37. Some people earned more than 1 violation per citation. So very successful commercial, and they're going to schedule another one here again specifically for us in Temecula. We have an SEU, a special enforcement unit that we did in July in conjunction with Oceanside. I'll be speaking about that again next month. And then coming up in August, we're doing one in French Valley. So we're doing special enforcement details with Indio CHP and San Gregorio Pass CHP. So basically, every month it's someone's turn to host, and every office sends units there. So August will be our turn. So we sent someone to Indio, and was it May, June we were in San Gregorio Pass, or sorry, July, San Gregorio Pass. Then August will be our turn. So we'll be out in French Valley. We should have about 4 or 5 officers out there just dedicated to French Valley alone to make some improvements out there. DUI arrests, still fairly well, 40 for the month. 13 of those were DUI crashes. Our collisions stay fairly well. Our fatals are trending upward. So we have 84 non-injuries, 53 injury collisions, 4 fatalities. The month before that we had 5. At this time I did this, we had 14 year-to-date. Right now we're at 17. We had 34 last year, so the goal is to be below 34. Typically, I've been a commander for almost 6 years now, and it's like the later months where I tend to get hit harder. So while 17 may sound good for this time of this year, it's really, I'm worried about the later months. So 141 total collisions. Our fatalities were SR 79 in Keller Road, which was unfortunately the one on graduation night. Still under investigation. SR 74 east of Highland Palm, that was a pedestrian. SR 79 and north of 371 was a pedestrian walked in front of a car. And then Sage Mountain Road north of Red Mountain Road, and that was a solo motorcycle collision. And that's all I have for this month. Any questions? Oh, and then just another note on staffing. I've got 2 more officers coming in September 1st, and then 2 more November 1st. So again, baby steps, but we're getting there.
It's not making you fat, but you still got some. Okay,
exactly.
cool.
It's the right direction.
Exactly.
Thanks. Sheriff.
We had 2,449 total citations last month. 19 of those were hazardous. Just to hit some highlights, the cell phone citations are staying around 300 a month. A year ago, they were about 150. It seems like people, as we've gotten away from COVID, are spending more time on their phones again in traffic, and we're trying to make an impact on that. Our DUI arrests are down slightly from last year. We're about 30 low for the year to date. Hopefully, that's a trend that's reflective of fewer people driving. We've gotten more and more people trained up and are working hard on finding those DUIs out there and preventing them from becoming collisions. We conducted 1 DUI checkpoint, 1 DUI saturation, or 3 DUI saturation enforcements, and we did 2 targeted traffic enforcement saturation patrols last month. We'll have another DUI checkpoint this month, and we're collaborating with one on the edge of the city with CHP next month as well. Other than that, as far as trends go, our injury collisions are staying pretty flat, averaging around 30 a month, and we've been fortunate as far as the serious injury and collisions have remained consistent. We haven't seen a rise that we're seeing in surrounding areas. So, do you guys have any questions for me?
Any? Outstanding. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thanks for the efforts of your folks too, both CHP and Temecula PD. Okay, traffic engineers report.
All right, well, I'm going to combine the traffic engineer and director report here, and unless Eric or Nick or Ron have anything to add, I just got one item for you, and that is this weekend, starting Friday at 7 p.m., we're going to have a full closure of Rainbow Canyon Road to do some remedial work associated with the damage that occurred during the winter storms. So we'll have the road completely closed from just south of the Temecula Creek Inn Golf Course down to the city limits, and that will start Friday at 7 p.m. and go until at the latest Sunday around noon, and hopefully we'll be able to get everything done by Saturday evening and be able to open it up Saturday evening. So, but this weekend, just you won't be able to drive Rainbow Canyon Road. So.
Well, the signs have been up for a while, so good. Thank you. All right. Commission reports, anything? Nothing to report. We have the commission breakfast on Thursday, next Thursday at 8.
Yes, sir.
I've got jury duty, so hopefully I don't get impaneled and I'll be there.
Oh, and I wanted to mention also, State of the City is August 10th. That's a morning breakfast, and you're all registered for that too. So
I'll be
hopefully
out
you
of
can make
state.
it.
I'll be out of state. I'm leaving on the 9th to go back east.
Okay. Okay.
All right. This meeting is adjourned until August 20, huh? Until the next time, August 24. Thank you.